Regarding spider plants, in this video here we will be going over the basic care that they require, such as lighting, watering, fertilization, and pest control. But the first thing that we're going to do is just jump right into the propagation of them. So what the plant will do after it becomes mature is it will start to send out these runners, and they'll get little flowers. And when that flower opens up and then falls off, a little baby spider plant will form, growing off of the runner. And that's how this plant was started, with just 3 little baby spider plants in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove some of these right here and repot them into some potting soil, into a hanging basket. So here's one of the baby spiders, and I'm just going to cut this excess piece of the runner off. We don't need that. I'm going to do that to all of them. That's a nice big one right there. So with the pot that I'll be using, it's a hanging basket. It's got really good drainage. It has a space down there at the bottom. So these will be inside, they'll be indoors. And right in here is where it fills with water, all the excess water. I don't got to worry about it going out onto my floor. I filled this up with potting soil, Miracle-Gro potting soil. It's mostly peat moss. Really any potting soil, or even a compost that's well draining would work. And now all you got to do, well, first I hydrated this several times to make sure that it was nice and moist. When you first use potting soils, anything with like peat moss or the coco coir, you know, the soil's dry. It might feel moist, but it can hold a lot more moisture. So I hydrate this really well first before planting in it. So I'm going to take some of the larger pieces first and put them towards the back. Now, you could put one in the center and then line it all the way around to get a nice big full looking plant. But I know mine are going to be in the house, and one of the sides will be closer to the wall. And I won't be turning my plants or nothing. I'll just let them stay where they are, let the leaves naturally grow out, and let them be efficient on where they grow their leaves to collect the light. Now I'm just going to make a little indentation right into the center and put one of the bigger ones. And what I'm doing is down here at the bottom, where the roots grow out from, I'm going to bury all of that. Right, you'll see like it'll be whiter towards the bottom, and there'll be like these nodes, or I don't know if you can see it, but there are little roots already starting. And I'm just going to put that right into the ground, into the pot, and then just give it a little bit of a pack down right around there. Just kind of get it in there nice and firm. I put one of the nicer ones right in the center, one of the larger ones. I'm going to put one here, and then over here as well, and over here. And I'm leaving the back here. I'm leaving this bare. And I had enough of those ones to do a second basket. Just giving them a little water right at the root ball there. Something else that I want to do is I just took a cup and put some of that potting soil mix in here. And I'm going to stick another one of those babies right into here. And over the next couple of weeks, just let that grow in here so I can pull this out in a couple of weeks, after about 2 or 3 weeks or so. How much root mass these little baby ones put on in here, is I'm not going to want to pull these out. This is just as a demonstration to show you. And then I will plant this right into, I'll see which hanging basket has a space or something, maybe a little room. Maybe one of them don't make it. They may not all make it. And this can be like a little replacement piece, little fill-in piece. So this one here, I dropped this actually. I knocked it over. It had a little runner starting with a couple of the little baby spider plants, but the runner broke. I was able to salvage 2 of them, And what I did is I just put these straight into water, dechlorinated water, and they started to grow roots. As you can see, you can see them. Let's work on this one. Now this one's a variegated variety, and what that means is, it's got some white or something in it. That's the variegation in it. The other one's a non-variegated variety. I'm pretty sure this is root bound. It's been here for quite a while in this small pot. We'll see right now. Maybe not. Let me see what happened. Oh yeah, that's root bound. So it's going to be happy in a larger pot. Just going to loosen these up a little bit. I'm actually going to do more than just loosen them up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to prune the roots themselves. And set it into the pot. And give it a little extra soil. So I filled the pot that it had originally came in with some soil. And these little baby spiders that were in the water that got their roots, I'm just going to put that right in here. And this will grow into a nice plant, just like the original was. And the other one will get much larger. It was a little root bound. So now getting into the care of the plants. For lighting, I would recommend no less than 4 to 6 hours of bright indirect sunlight. No direct sunlight touching the leaves though. They cannot handle direct sunlight and the leaves will burn. These ones here, the variegated varieties, the leaf where that white spot is, where the variegation is, there's no photosynthesis occurring in there. So, they need a little bit more light. I'd recommend a minimum of 6, preferably 8 or 9 hours for some real nice lush growth. And the non-variegated varieties, they can handle a little less light, maybe 4 hours of bright indirect light. But again, if you can boost that up to 8 or 9 hours, you'll get a lot more growth out of your plants. And then moving on to watering. So the thing about watering, there is no real set schedule, definite schedule for watering plants. You got to give them the water that they need when they need it. There's a lot of variables that can change over time. Like as the plant gets larger, it will require more water. If it's been in a pot longer and it begins to get root bound, and I don't know where the soil in the pots go, but over time the soil just kind of disappears, and as the plant gets root bound, there's less soil and more root in there, so there's not as much space for the moisture. So if you notice you're watering your plants more and more, it could be that they're starting to get root bound and need to be up-potted. Also, the placement of the plant too will determine how frequently it will need to be watered. These are going to be hanging baskets in the house, so when the weather gets warmer, they're hanging from the ceiling and it's warmer up there. So they may require a little bit more watering. What I'll be doing over the next 2 to 3 weeks, every day I'll just test the soil by touching it to see if it's still moist, and if it's starting to get dry, I'll use that sprayer to re-moisten the top couple inches of the soil. And then after that, I'll start watering them about maybe once or twice every week, and maybe once a month or every other month, I'll let the soil dry out some. When you hear that said, let the soil dry out in between waterings, they don't mean every time you water it to let it dry out before you water it again. And they also don't mean to make the soil bone dry. You don't want it to be a desert in there. The best way that I can describe to you or try to explain to you what I mean by that was if you were to take a sponge and submerge it in the water and it's really wet, and then you start wringing it out and you can't get any more water out of that sponge, well, the sponge is still moist though. And that's actually what they mean by letting a plant dry out. Because you don't want plants to have their soil or I'm sorry, the roots sitting in overly wet, muddy soil. That's how you'll get root rot, and you can lose the whole plant that way. And temperatures. So these plants, they like it to be between 55 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 13 to 27 Celsius. And they also like, they'll do okay in low humidity, but they'll really thrive in like a medium humidity, maybe 50% or something like that. So now moving on to fertilization, fertilizing, feeding your plants. What I do after planting something like this in fresh soil that's already got some slow release fertilizers in there, it's spring right now, spring's coming up. I'm not going to fertilize these at all until early or mid fall. And then I won't fertilize it all over winter. But then when spring comes, there's two different ways I may do that. I will get a all-purpose 10-10-10 fertilizer, and I'll either water them or fertilize them in early spring, again in maybe midsummer, and then again early to mid-fall. And that's one way. Or another way for even more growth, more vigorous growth, is I'll take that 10-10-10 fertilizer and dilute it down. I'll use twice as much water as you're supposed to, or as it's recommended, to make it a 5-5-5 fertilizer. And then I'll do that from spring all the way through fall at half strength every month. Now, moving on to pest control. They can get just about all the same pests as all your other houseplants. I'm not going to get into all the different types and different ways to deal with individual pests. I'm going to actually do a video here pretty soon on that, and I will put a box up in the window at the end of the video so you can see that. But just real basically, this is true. What I'm going to show you right now is true for almost all of your houseplants. For pest control, and I'm not talking about a issue where you already have some sort of an outbreak or something, or you got a colony of insects or something, or funguses or something in your plant. I'm talking about, this is prevention. I use a synthetic insecticide, which basically means that it gets absorbed into the plant, right into the plant cells, and you have that insecticide right in the plant. These are kind of like fertilizer spikes, but it's actually an insecticide. And this is great, but you gotta be aware that it takes quite a while for the plant to actually absorb this and get it into the cells. It's not immediate. This is not for taking care of a current infestation. This is for preventing one. If you already have a problem like that, you can still get synthetic fertilizers that are sprays, and just use it as directed. Usually you'll need to spray 2 to 3 times a week for about 2 weeks for it to be effective, to make sure all the eggs or the larvae and all the different stages of the insect are gone out of your plant. But also for prevention, I'll use this product here. It's neem oil, and it controls a whole bunch of stuff, funguses, mildews, insects, all kinds of stuff. And it's a natural oil that also will get into the plant. And this is great for prevention as well. Again, if you have a infestation already, you'll want to use a spray synthetic fertilizer. But another good thing about this product is that's what I use to keep my leaves nice and green and shiny. Also, it's a natural oil from the neem tree. And a few times a year, I just wipe everything down. It makes everything nice and shiny. It's been well over a month since I did these guys here, these monsteras. But it will make them nice and shiny, and it helps to prevent different types of outbreaks. So we're going to let this stuff just sit here for a few weeks, and then we'll do an update, which will be in this video. So it's been 2.5 weeks. And I will take this plant out and clean off the soil from the roots to show you just how much growth it actually got in just 2.5 weeks. But first, I just wanted to clarify something. This video, is how I care for my spider plants. There's a few things that I said as far as like the watering. When I said you don't allow the soil to dry out in between each watering. That was for the spider plants and in most of your other house plants. But there are exceptions to that, like cactus and succulents, things like that. You totally let them dry out, you know, in between each watering, and you do let the soil get quite dry before you re-water. Also, there's other plants too that, you know, you don't have to worry about root rot with some other types of plants as well, because they grow in swampy or marshy areas. That's their natural habitat. So, you know, there's exceptions to what I said. Always look up your individual plants and see what kind of care they need. Also with fertilization, now there's some plants that are heavy feeders that require more fertilizer, and there's other plants that do not appreciate any fertilizing at all. And there's plants that require specialized fertilizers. So the advice and stuff that I was giving and how I was explaining how I take care of my spider plants, it's for the spider plants. Always look up your plant and see what they need. So now with this guy here, I'm just going to clean this up. There we go. So hopefully you guys can see this. I don't have the best camera, but these are all roots right here. There is quite a bit of root on there. It's just been 2.5 weeks. Like all of these are roots right here. All of this stuff, that's all root.